Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our first public presentation on the future of Rock Spring Golf Course. My name is Susan McCartney, newly elected mayor here in West Orange, and we are joined this evening by members of the Township Administration, Business Administrator and CFO, John Gross, Assistant Business Administrator, Pete Smeraldo, here, our Financial Advisor, Mike Hanley, Police Chief and Director of Operations, Jim Abbott, and our Traffic Engineer, John Korak, and Paul Greigel, our Township Engineer. I'm sorry, our Township Planner. Sorry, Paul. And representatives from leading nationwide sports, entertainment, and hospitality company, Kemper Sports Management. Our representatives are here. Jeremy Goldblatt, Kemper Sports Chief and Executive Officer. John Cheshire, Kemper's Senior Vice President. David Kronheim, Chairman and General Counsel of Kronheim Companies. And David is our Contract Compliance Officer. And Chris Parker, Kemper's General Manager of Rock Spring Golf Club. And Chris was named the GM from Kemper, GM of the Year in the year 2020. And joining me tonight is also council members, Michelle Castellino, Tammy Williams, Asmeret Gebremichael, Susan Scarpa, and I believe Bill Rutherford intends to be here. So as your newly elected mayor, it is my priority and that of the council to seek tax revenue offsets. This presentation that we are about to hear from these professionals on the financial status of Rock Spring and to gather input from the community before entertaining any type of plan for this site. It is an incredibly beautiful site. As with all land use applications, a letter was mailed to residents within this 200-foot radius of the site, of the golf course. I have placed signs on. I placed sign-in sheets on the rows. Please sign in. We want to create a database of everyone that's here. I already have the names of everyone that's on the 200-foot radius, and I have received numerous emails from people. So I'm creating a database so that we can keep you informed of anything as we move forward. To preface the PowerPoint that we're about to see, the background history, we have a lot of new people on the council, but we also have a lot of new residents. The background history and really the purpose of this meeting is to tell you that the township bonded $12.5 million for the acquisition of Rock Spring Country Club, Rock Spring Golf Course in 2019, with the intent to preserve these 138 acres because, let's bear in mind, golf courses in our township are zoned for residential development. The 4-to-1 vote to bond to preserve was the first and only vote in my tenure on the council to receive a standing ovation. So we're really pleased, and that's why we're here, because all along the township had proposed that a small portion of this site would or could be developed while attempting to preserve the integrity of the course, 138 acres, with Green Acres funding. We need to recoup, to understand what we're doing, we need to recoup the $588,000 that was lost when it was privately owned. And now that we have bond, we need to garner $700,000 to pay down the debt that we have now incurred in the acquisition. Thankfully, the popularity of this Seth Rayner golf course has offset the lost tax revenue that was received when it was privately owned and some of the costs to maintain this beautiful site. Many of you have asked me why we haven't submitted for Green Acres funding yet. We cannot apply for Green Acres funding until we decide what we could or should be the most non-invasive type of development that would preserve the integrity of this golf course, as well as the neighborhood and as well as our taxpayers. So that's the reason we're here tonight. we're not presenting any plan. We're going to show you where we are financially, and there will be maps that we'll see on what we will consider as we move forward. So I really thank you all for being here, and please sign in so that we can keep a record of who is present and interested. There are a couple seats here. Thank you. And Richard Trank, our town attorney.
Thank you, Mayor. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Richard Trank. I'm the township attorney and have been honored to serve this town since 1998 as township attorney. So we want to, most of you have some background and knowledge. I'm going to let my colleague, Mr. Parker, and it's real important. Kemper's going to make a presentation tonight about some of the capital needs. It's important for everyone to know that Kemper was selected through an RFP process. They have been reselected. They manage over, I think, 140 courses now, and their commitment to West Orange in this course has been overwhelming. They have an app, they get evaluations, they monitor all the zip codes, and so the partnership with Kemper has been extremely important in terms of their professionalism and their service to the community. They do Galloping Hill, they do other courses in New Jersey that they'll talk about. So for those of you who don't know, let's flip to the next one. This all began in January of 2016. This had been a private course going back to, I think, 1925 or thereabouts. We have our town historian who can fill that in, and it failed. So let's just not forget. It was for many, many years, a private course. It did not make it. And in 2016, Montclair Golf Club, which is actually in West Orange, you all know where it is by the manor in West Orange, they purchased it, or they merged. Again, I'm not familiar with the dynamics of that, but they took it over and hoped they'd have two campuses. That was the goal, and a great goal, by the way. The township supported it. We wanted to see it thrive with two campuses. It didn't work. They had committed to the members, and again, I know this anecdotally, there's been a lot of litigation about it, but they committed to keep it as is for 2 years. Immediately at the end of the 2 years, they hired JLL Capital Markets, one of the major real estate firms in the country, to put this on the market. And to put it on the market, to sell it residential. That's what was going to happen. It has been estimated that this 138 acres could maybe hold up to 1,000 residences. So when that became known to Mayor Parisi and those of us in the administration, and we heard of it afoot, and then obviously saw the listing, immediately we reached out to the county. Obviously, we all know the county exec has been tremendously successful in furthering the parks in this area. We obviously know the area behind McClune's, which is a gem. We know what he's done to improve it. And we know the county has a public course in this town already. So we reached out to the county exec. He was extremely receptive. And we actually, in early 19, went to a meeting with the Board of Trustees at Montclair Golf Club down the street. The county exec was there, all his senior staff, obviously Mayor Parisi, most of our senior staff was there. And their offer to Montclair to buy it was around 6 million or thereabouts. The numbers don't matter, but it was rejected out of hand by Montclair. They said, nope, we know what this is worth. We've done a market analysis. We believe we could get 10, 11, 12, I don't remember the exact numbers, but far greater. They were not willing to negotiate with the county. The county left that meeting. They said, we don't want to negotiate. Now, keep in mind, at this point in early 19, not only do we have the prospect of a dense potential development here, we were in the middle of what's called the fair share housing litigation, which is important. We have an obligation throughout New Jersey, as you are well aware, and West Orange has met it, to have housing, moderate and low income housing. So that adds, and we do it in this town, and we have a settlement where 20% of any new development has to meet low and mod. And we have some phenomenal projects that are going on, including behind Essex Green Shopping Center that will have 64 units. We will have 64 additional units down in the old library site. And then eventually in the Highlands, there will be additional units there. So the prospect of this being residential was real. As the mayor said, it's already zoned residential. It's currently zoned 2 acres, but you can't you can't force that, especially when you have affordable housing. So the short answer is, at that point, we also had tax appeals pending. So keep in mind, as the mayor said, we were getting about $580,000 or more every year in real estate taxes. As the market had dropped, the bottom line is, and as the operations of this club had dropped, as you know, every resident, anybody who owns property in West Orange or any town, on April 1, you can file tax appeals. And we had significant tax appeals pending. And our outside counsel and Mark Hendricks, who's our appraiser, said we had exposure, meaning West Orange had exposure of refunding over $1 million in taxes that had been collected. So we had the prospect of residential, we had the failing of this club, we had the marketing by a national firm, and we had pending tax appeals. At that point, Mayor Parisi, in consultation with the council, as the mayor said, she was obviously on the council at that point and strongly supported it. It was a 4-1 vote, said we should go ahead. And eventually the purchase price was $12.2 million, wrapped in, settled all the appeals and whatnot. And we acquired on April 18th of 2019, so basically 4 years ago, fee simple title to this 138 acres. We did an RFP, and that's when Kemper came, because again, our mayor and whatnot, we'd never run a golf cart. So we only went this way when we saw the job and what was occurring at Galloping Hill and in Jersey City and other public courses where you can do an RFP and bring in an independent operator. We weren't going to staff up and hire people to run a golf course because that incurs pension and all the other obligations that go with staff. So the short answer is on April 6th of 2020, the Fair Share Housing Settlement became final. That provides, and Mayor Parisi in some of his earlier presentations have indicated, if there is a development here, 20% will be affordable. And the mayor in some of his earlier presentations said it would be approximately 150 units. At that point, we did not think an 18-hole golf course was likely to be successful here. The concept was we had too many golf courses in this town. And so the concept is, was there a need and a desire to go? Could you go to the next slide? So I ran through most of this, but the short answer is, as the last bullet says, on the day we closed, we lost approximately $585,000 in real estate taxes that we were generating on an annual basis. Next slide. So again, this property, and one of the reasons the tax appeals were real and an exposure was it had been assessed at $14.5 million. Obviously, it sold for $12 million, which included a tax bill. So we had real exposure on that. And you could see, as you know, about 25% of your real estate tax bill goes to the municipality, about 62% goes to the Board of Ed, and then the county gets the balance. Next slide. Okay. So now I'm turning it over to Mr. Hanley and Mr. Gross, who are our financial gurus who created this slide so they can explain it. For those of you who don't know, obviously, as the mayor said, Mr. Gross is our business administrator and our CFO for over a decade. Mike Hanley is with Northwestern. He's advised this town for probably well over a decade as to every project we've undertaken. So I'm going to hand it over.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you, Rich. The problem we've always had in the context of this is, in order to preserve what we want to preserve, we had to purchase the property. We had to purchase the property for about $12 million. We have lost taxes and we have debt service related to that $12 million. The golf course, after you include the improvements that need to be made, the capital improvements on an ongoing basis, is slightly better than a break-even proposition. So we are trying to recover as much of the $1.2 million in annualized costs as we can. And the only place to recover that is through selling some land and also generating tax revenue on the property. And that's what we're here to discuss, is to find out the best way to move forward in the context of having an annual budget impact of about $1.3 million.
No, we're going to do questions at the end. We want to get to the whole presentation, and we'll go back to anything you want. That's what we're going to do.
Okay. I think it's really important just to go back to the couple points that the mayor made and that Mr. Trank made. 4 years ago, when we purchased this property, at that point in time, we were anticipating a loss of taxes of about $585,000, round number $600,000, and a debt service that was going to cost us somewhere in the area of $700,000. That's $1.3 million. So now here we are 4 years later, and we're pretty much in the same spot we were then in terms of that. We have lost the taxes, we have the debt service, we're getting some revenues, but just like any other asset that you have, we have to reinvest in that asset in order to do maintenance of old buildings and facilities that perhaps maybe didn't get the kind of care that it should have gotten previous to our ownership. So we have to reinvest the monies that we are receiving back into the property. So we're doing that in order to provide what is becoming a first-class facility in terms of golf. But as everyone has said before, there was always an anticipation of at least investigating and looking towards some limited opportunities there for some to gain additional tax revenues. I think it's important to point out that West Orange has very limited opportunities for future tax growth. And there may be an opportunity here. That's what we're here to talk about from tonight, to get your ideas about that and to understand what your perspectives are. So thank you.
I do want to explain the financial agreement we have with Kemper, and keep in mind it says on an RFP, and there weren't a lot of respondents, but this is important. When you see golf revenues 573,501, so the deal we have, what was critically important to Mayor Parisi is we weren't going to have a downside. Okay, so they have all the risk. They hire the people, they pay them, they do all that. So our deal is we get 5% off the top. Gross revenues, we get 5%. After that, all the expenses get paid, and then we split the quote net profits 50-50. So the good news is it's worked to our benefit by 573. The bad news is we gave up 585,000. So if you look at that, as Mr. Gross said, we're kind of treading water, so to speak. And where we get into trouble, as you'll hear as we go on, is you got to feed this asset. You can't, and they have pictures that they will show you, and Mr. Parker and his colleagues will explain. And we spent, for example, last year we spent over $1 million on golf carts. One of the problems with this course that you're going to hear about tonight is it has an irrigation problem. An irrigation problem that existed. Somebody's nodding, so he's a golfer. And to fix that, as Mr. Cheshire and Mr. Parker are going to tell you, could cost over $3 million to get this course dry. So we built golf cart paths around it. The council voted for and bonded $1 million something. What's the number? $1.5 million. All the golf carts paths are done. The good news about that is after rain, he gets open quicker, more revenue, service the public. But the bad news is now, not only the $12 million we bonded to buy it, now we get another $1.5 million we got to pay off again. So those are the issues. Next slide. Okay, so this was the presentation that you all heard and is on the internet by Mayor Parisi on February 19th. So again, I know a lot of you will say to yourself, we never thought there'd be any prospect for any of you to develop, and I respect all of your recollections, but this is right from what Mayor Parisi said before the town council voted to buy it. He said, I'm not telling you we're going to keep it pristine land forever, because I don't know that an 18-hole golf course works. I don't know if it's needed. We want to do the best we can to preserve as much as the mayor says is possible. So what the mayor said, Mayor Parisi said back then there, he expected that 15 to 18 acres would be developed of the 138. So we keep the lion's share, but 15, 18. His first thought was that along Northfield Avenue, we would develop, because the good thing about developing on Northfield, as you can appreciate, is there's a light at Ridgeway by that Delta gas station, and it would be easy access to a county road, right? So that was, again, the initial thought. Access the property at Ridgeway Avenue, maybe an active adult community, roughly 175 residential units, affordable housing that we must address and we will address as a community, incorporate golf, possibly other recreation. There have been people with, hockey is the big thing. You can't get enough ice. And again, the market value at that point, Mr. Hanley done the analysis and said, if you did that, you could get a project that you could generate $7.5 million, and then you would generate a steady stream of real estate tax revenue going on and on. So everybody knows what the golf course looks like, but as Mayor McCartney said, this is an amazing site. You can be on this course and it's hard to believe you're even in New Jersey. It's got tremendous topography. The problem with this course, besides some of the inherent problems with irrigation and topography and whatnot, is there's not a lot of excess land. Like recently, the council last year with the mayor's involvement, we were able to buy 95 excess acres from Crestmont Country Club that we are going to, because they were going to develop that or try to develop it. And we stepped in, we got some money from the county. We spent $4 or $5 million on that to preserve that at Crestmont. But that was excess land that could have been not 1,000 homes, but would have been a lot. There's not a lot of chunks of land here. And one of the things Mr. Greigel, our planner, hopefully he doesn't have to go on Zoom too soon, is going to show you the areas. But just so you're acclimated, because I think you all will be quickly, this is the easterly location looking towards New York, Cable Lake, which is right out there, right, Chris? This is the clubhouse that's here. I want to make an important point, and I think this is certainly something, so you know there's a pool here. We are not ever opening the pool here because we've invested $1 million downtown. We have 1,800 members there. We're not going to have an up the hill, down the hill. That's been the philosophy since the beginning. So we got lots of amenities here. But again, if there's a private development, maybe they'll do it. But our downtown pool is better than ever. So if you're not a member, Bill Keogh's there. I'll sign you up before you leave. We've got a splash pad. We got every amenity down there. And that's been something that at least the last administration and the last council have felt strongly about. So again, here's Northfield. You all know Northfield. Here's Barringer Court. Here's Walker. Walker goes out to a traffic signal, as you know, at Northfield. Don't forget, the 4th and 5th holes are on the other side of Walker. So there's actually a cart path that crosses that road. And obviously, we all know the major entrance, all of you who drove tonight, comes on Rock Spring Road now. And we'll talk more about that and some of the potential issues with that. So I do have to point out, West Road is here. And obviously you're aware that there's a dead end at West Road down here. This is the 17th hole, right? Okay. So again, we don't need to. So again, as the mayor said, we can, once we agree and the council agrees on what's going to be permanently deed restricted, we can make an application. That doesn't mean we automatically get the money to the state of New Jersey, Department of Environmental Protection. This town has done this over and over again in this town to get green acres. Now, green acres at most gives you 50% of the fair market value of what you agree you will never build on ever. So that's why we kicked this decision kind of down the road. We need to make this decision as a community sooner rather than later, because that will help pay down a portion of the debt we have now. Okay, so again, 50% of funding for undeveloped and permanently deed restricted. It's permanently protected against development. Okay, so what's changed? What's changed since 2019 till now? Other than the fact that we need the debt. But the amazing thing is, and Chris was saying it before, the number of rounds, you said 30, how many? A little over 33,000. So 33,000 rounds were played on this course last year. So we are a victim of our own success. The great thing is it's a great course and people are coming here. Now, don't forget, with use comes deterioration. You know, you got to keep that in mind. So therefore, at least and Mayor McCartney will speak for herself, but the goal is to maintain the 18-hole golf course. It works. It is a gem, and people come. I think Chris was telling us before, the zip codes aren't just West Orange. They're Jersey City, they're Hoboken, they're Staten Island, you know, the Ubers. And again, look at it. This is a community asset, but green space is for everyone. And we think that when, and I don't want to use this derogatory, if you're a golfaholic or whatever, and you see an amenity like this, those are the future generations, people with new kids and whatnot. So if they see this as an asset, they're going to come back. And when they're ready to buy a house and they're looking for a good school system, we're hoping they'll move here. And we think it's helped our land values. So we don't have a lot of land. We don't have a lot of options. Again, so this is a critical issue. And I don't know if you're ready to segue to yours. This structure you're in, while it looks beautiful, other than, those of you who are standing. This structure is too big for a public, most public court, this is 25,000 square feet, the building you're in now. But the average public one, as Chris and his colleagues will say, is 2,500 to 5,000 square feet. Keep in mind, you don't need lockers for a public golf course. That's some of the amenities in a private. And as Chris is going to show you in a few minutes, this structure he's had floods in his golf pro shops. We have issue after issue. It's just like owning a house. This has neared the end of its useful life, and it's not, from every golf point of view, the right structure for this course. So again, we talked about the golf cart path. Okay, so a lot of rumors going around the fall. We're gonna, it's all about giving you information. So when Grabowski, that won the contract, did the golf paths, they said, you got a quarry full of stuff. And that quarry, which you all know, is on Undercliff. The bottom line is, for years and years, Rock Spring, they would just throw all the tree stumps and everything down there. I love Siri. I don't understand either. But they would just throw stuff down there, and it was there. When we bought this, we knew it. And one of the hesitations was what was there, and it could have cost upwards, we were told, $4 million to clear it out. Now, Grabowski, which is a very professional firm, been in this town forever, when they were doing the golf cart path, they said, we're here, we have all the equipment on site, we'll clear it out. And if any of you have been on Undercliff, and I'm sure a lot of residents are here, they've done a substantially good job. So it was not, and I want to say again, Mayor McCartney said it, there is no developer. There is no development on the horizon immediately. This is the first new step to try to explore it, but it is now cleared out, and we think that's good, because you get crap off it, it's good, and it was just just a quarry for a long time. Next. Okay, so we also sold the paddle. The paddle courts were in terrible shape. We weren't using them for the community. I don't know, somebody took them away or whatnot. But the tennis courts were outdated. So last year we had terrible parking issues. The tennis courts are now being used for employee parking and some overflow parking for events. So as you all know, Rock Spring Road is the main access. So when you look at solving the issues of this, we obviously are all sensitive, especially those of us who live in this area, that getting out on Rock Spring Road with the close proximity to Prospect and that traffic signal. So just so it's clear, there cannot be another traffic signal at Rock Spring because of its close proximity to Prospect. So that's the reality. Now, again, I've asked the mayor over and over. I've asked the chief several times. He can comment on it later. While we know, those of us who go in and out of that road every day, that it's a challenge to go west or east. There has not been a proliferation of, there's been some accidents there, like in many intersections, but it's not like since it went public, when you have 33,000 people playing golf, that there's been some spike. Again, doesn't mean we're not careful about it, and doesn't mean that if there's some residential development, that it's not something that we must, and that's why we have the traffic guy here. And I'll introduce him in a couple minutes, and he'll explain what he's going to do to evaluate it. It doesn't mean that we aren't our eye on that issue about safety, if that's going to be an access point. Chris? Okay, so Mayor Parisi, what he presented was to build a parallel road that would come down basically behind West Road off of Ridgeway. That road would have cost $2.5 million. That would have been the cost. There is clearly some terrain issues on that. And that was what Mayor Parisi had presented at that point. But the cost was $2 million then, because of the length of it and because of some of the topography issues. And then under that scenario, the Rock Spring Road entrance would be basically curtailed. So you would not be able to get to the club from Rock Spring Road. You'd have to come up this parallel road that would run up that way. That would have permitted a development of something like, I think it was over 200 units potentially. But then we got into an issue. You can appreciate that the bluff, which is where we are now, has the views of the city. So that would be one aspect. But the more you kind of try to decide it out, and again, this is all, whatnot, if it's a more rectangular area where you can do where some people have said you should do it over by what I'll call where the existing tennis courts are, the ones that aren't being used. So let's go to the next one, and then are we ready for Paul Grigel? Okay, so this is one of the splotches that was looked at for possibly, this is the bluff, obviously. As you know, the house next door traded, and they're doing an amazing renovation there. I hope I get invited one day. It looks like it's going to be spectacular. This is the maintenance yard that exists kind of in the middle. Let's go to the next one. Okay, so I talked about this, but I just want to make sure everybody understands. We will always comply with Mount Laurel and fair share housing in this community. That's the bottom line. We're committed to it. Our community exists, is great because of all of this. And the council did approve the fair share housing plan, which anticipates 150 units on the site if it's developed, which will include 30 affordable or moderate income units. Okay, so now I'm going to turn it over to, I know you're running between meetings. Paul Grigel has been the township planner for many years, and this is an analysis he's done.
Thank you. Good evening. Yes, since 2009, I've been advising the township on planning issues, including since 2012 on a regular basis with both the planning board and zoning board, which is where I'm going this evening, 8 o'clock to 11. You can see me on Zoom with that board advising on other development issues. Mr. Trank mentioned a few minutes ago about excess land at golf courses that sometimes exist, such as at Crestmont. We don't have that luxury here at Rock Spring. However, through looking at a few different areas and how the course is laid out currently, we've identified 4 different locations that could potentially be, we could deem non-essential land that could be utilized for other purposes. In other words, it's outside of the existing golf course footprint and would be able to potentially accommodate development. Again, this is very preliminary. We've just recently tried to identify the locations and the size and potential access points for these areas. So this is an overview looking north is to the right on this slide. So that's Northfield Ave running diagonally. Walker Road is down here towards the south. So we'll go through each of these one by one, starting at the south end. This is where the 4th and 5th holes are currently. So on the south side of Walker Road, the triangles in blue or whatever trapezoid, whatever shape you want to call the other one, are identifying as the rough outlines. And we've very roughly estimated the area of each of these potential locations for, again, potential development of some sort. So the first one to the east side would be accessed off Hillcrest Avenue. So down next to the 4th hole, that's roughly 2.75 acres of land. To the west side, accessed by a township-owned piece on Walker Road, would be approximately 2.4 acres. So this is an open area next to the 5th hole of the golf course. Again, these are just outlining places where potentially you could fit something other than golf if there was a desire to go in this direction. Moving northward up to Undercliff, there's the area we talked about before where the clubhouse where we're sitting now, that's a separate area, but essentially down the hill by the quarry to the east of it is an area that's approximately 2 acres in size. It actually is divided currently into single family residential lots. These were created a number of years ago. They're owned as part of the course by the township at this time. So they are facing roughly the same locations as the houses on the opposite side of the street. So that's about 2 acres there to the east of the 3rd hole. Next slide. And then the last one, this is also Mr. Trank referred to by the tennis courts or the former tennis courts, parking areas, another 2 acres along the backside of West Road along the 18th hole of the course. So in total, this is approximately 9 acres, 9.15 acres. Again, off very unscientific measurements. If this goes forward to be explored further, there'd certainly be a lot more investigation to the exact sizes, the development capability, if anything, given environmental constraints and other features. But again, the excess or non-essential portions of the property roughly works out to 9 acres.
Great, thank you, Paul. Okay, so again, we'll get more into this when everybody gives their input, but in a lot of the past meetings discussion, the priorities have always been safety, traffic, preserve as much as we can, amenities, and that's been one of the issues with having an a la carte restaurant and whatnot, obviously density, and then others that you will articulate. So again, now I want to turn this over to Chris for Kemper to show you the capital needs of this course that exists if we're going to maintain it as an 18 golf course. Yeah, Jane.
All right, good evening, everyone. As Mr. Trink so eloquently stated, this is a beautiful golf course. We good, Joe? Okay, all right. Beautiful golf course, wonderful facility. Something that you need to nurture. Over time, things happen. You need to continue to reinvest. And we've identified some areas where we have some issues that we want to talk to you about today. I think it's important before we get into that we talk about what some specific terms are as it relates to capital and maintenance of the golf course. Maintenance is a responsibility of Kemper Sports. That can be outlined as something as similar, as simple as the day-to-day operation. So the mowing the grass, making sure we have a clubhouse that operates, staffing employees, and also taking care of the minor repairs such as having bunker rates, having golf carts, making repairs, some minor repairs to bunkers, things of that nature. And they have a life expectancy of 5 years or less. That's really the key point. When we start talking about capital, we're talking about larger scale projects, which the township anticipates that the property will have more of a useful life of more than 5 years. Things that are significant, like a substantial bunker renovation, replacement of an HVAC unit, a roof replacement, things of those natures. We have identified some severe areas. On this slide, you see outlined a few of them. Drainage improvements is something that they talked about earlier. We have several areas out on the golf course where water just doesn't move away properly. It's caused us a lot of reinvestment in areas, turf loss, and it's caused some significant damage to the golf course. The pump house is something as well that we're having issues with. A typical pump house does not last as long as it is up here. The one that we have is currently 24 years old. Irrigation system is something I'll move forward to as we get into the detailed slides, but it's currently 22 years old. You hear us talking about bunkers. Bunkers is a big deal here, not only from a playability standpoint, but a safety standpoint. And I'll talk about that a little bit more. HVAC replacement, we covered that. Roof replacement. And then we do think we have an opportunity to have a practice facility, which will help us to try to generate some additional revenue. So just to kind of put a number around these areas up here on this field, on this slide, it gives you a summary of those costs. We're looking at roughly spending in the near future right around 5.4, and these are just estimated costs. Okay, as we jump into drainage, these are real pictures of your golf course where after not having significant rain, we have realized some severe drainage issues, specifically on holes 2, 4, 8, 10, 17, and 18. And as I had spoke about that a little bit earlier, by improving these areas, we will be able to reduce some operational costs, which at the end of the day puts more money into the bottom line. And the course becomes more profitable. It also helps us to present a better product. Pump house replacement. This is a big one. If I were to talk to you in terms of a pump house, I would like for you to think about your body without a heart. If we don't have the pump house, a functioning pump on a golf course, we're not able to irrigate the golf course properly. We can't keep the turf alive. You'll come in one day and you'll have a brown golf course. No one's playing a brown golf course. So we have to reinvest in this. The current system we have has reached its life expectancy. These are actually images from a large scale project we had to do last year where the intake pipe, which is this pipe, actually burst And in turn, it caused some damage on the inside where we had to put in some new electrical components. And we weren't able to water the golf course for a couple of days. And this was right in the middle of the summer in the drought that we had last year, where it was hot and dry and just very challenging to keep everything alive. So this is something that we have to address. Going right in with that, as Richard had mentioned earlier, we do anticipate that we will need to replace the overall irrigation system. Typical irrigation systems they typically last about 20 to 30 years. We're running around 22 years now, but we're starting to have significant issues. What you see here is literally we come in a day and we've got geysers coming out of the fairway, or we've got large leaks that are coming from areas out next to tee boxes or adjacent to greens. Significant money is being reinvested in this. Over the last 3 years, we've invested $124,000, which is about double the amount of a typical irrigation repair on a yearly basis for a golf course. So we have to address this. We have to get the new system in. It's worth noting that the newer systems do last longer. The piping is better, the wiring's better. So making a significant investment will lead to a more efficient and a more stable system for the future. Bunker renovations, something that we've talked about. The bunkers on the course, they do present a safety issue. And when I say a safety issue, this is a picture of a bunker, one of the greenside bunkers on the golf course. It's probably hard to see from the back, but literally the face of this is starting to fall in. So we came in one morning, the face of the bunker is in. If somebody steps on that, now you have a safety liability. Someone could get hurt. They don't drain properly. After some rain, you see this, the top right picture is of a bunker on hole 14, full of water. They need new drainage, they need new liners, they need to be reshaped. And it's something that we'll have to do coming in the near future. HVAC units. These are actual HVAC units on top of your building right now. They are at the end of their life expectancy. We recently, when I say recently, within the last week, have had to make some substantial repairs. We needed a fan motor. We needed some igniters on 2 units that actually are right above the building, the room that you guys are sitting in. So these are estimated costs, but this is something that's associated with your property. It's got to get done, and we'll have to fix it. Roof replacement. The images on this slide show you areas in this building where we have experienced severe water damage. There's multiple issues with the roof in this building. There's some pitching that's not done properly. The shingles experience a little bit more stress because of where we're located. You get a high winds in this area, so it's getting to where we are making more repairs from water damage than a typical facility. And then the last thing we kind of wanted to talk about would be a practice facility. So Rock Spring only has a putting green. We do not have a chipping area. We don't have a driving range. We don't have any type of short game facility where we can do programming. This kind of leads into us talking about ways on how we can improve the facility as a whole, how we can offer more programming for youth, adults, women, community outreach, and also use some of the space a little bit of space that we have to try to do that. So where the old driving range is where we are proposing that we construct that. For those of you who haven't been here, or the golfers know where I'm talking about. It's just to the right of the first fairway. It's in between 1 and 18. We feel strongly that we can put some type of practice facility in there. When it was a private golf club, they used to actually hit across the 18th fairway into that driving range. Easy to do when you have 12 to 15,000 golfers coming through on a yearly basis. When you have 33,000 plus, it presents a safety issue. So we couldn't open that range, and we need to figure out how we can go into constructing that. I'll just say one thing just before I hand it back to Richard. We would like to thank the community. The community and the residents have had amazing support of this club since we've come in here in 2019. This is truly a special place, and we look forward to being a part of the club's resurrection as we move forward.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you very much. And again, to Chris as General Manager of the Year, he gives credit to not only Kemper, but obviously to West Orange. So without further ado, so So one of the aspects and one of the mayor's main focus is whatever we do has to be safe. We obviously respect the safety of all the neighborhoods and anybody who comes in this area. So at the mayor's direction, we've reached out to a traffic consultant as embryonic as possible. So whatever the options are, Mr. Grigo puts up possible excess land or non-essential land. We believe at this juncture, traffic analysis is important. So Mr. Korak is with Stonefield Engineering. He has done numerous traffic and transportation engineering designs and analyses. He has not yet, I just want to be very clear, nothing has been done yet. He's obviously been given an overview, and what we wanted him to do for less than 5 minutes is just explain how they will embark on analyzing that issue. John.
Great, thank you. Again, my name is John Korak. I'm with Stonefield Engineering, and our firm has a wealth of experience in traffic studies for development projects, such as the potential reuse of the limited open space that does exist here. And we've worked on development projects not only for private developers, but a handful of municipalities within the state as well. And what we typically look for in a traffic study, we want to understand the traffic safety, we want to understand the traffic capacity. We would conduct an analysis of the existing roadway network. We would come to understand prior accident history, dive into the reasoning that specific collisions are frequently occurring, the safety impacts of the area, and what adding additional traffic could look like in that area. We would forecast that additional traffic, conduct those capacity analysis, and ultimately make recommendations on how to solve specific traffic issues. And as the potential development plans unfold and take shape, over the coming months or years, we will be right there as far as conducting those traffic analyses and providing that traffic impact. And of course, this is very much something that we want to be able to work in collaboration with the neighbors, with the people that drive the roads every single day. The feedback that the public has on these traffic analysis and their own experience is extremely important to us as traffic engineers. As you are all are motorists too that are using the roadways and are out here more often than I or anyone at our firm could ever be, just by proximity. So with that, we certainly look forward to public input on the traffic engineering and look forward to preparing study for the municipality as it's associated with the potential developments.
Thank you, John. So one of the things before even Kemper was in the picture, when the mayor and council were initially exploring this, is we don't know how to operate a golf course. We don't profess. We're not going to learn. You don't try to be a jack of all trades. So we reached out for a golf consultant who could help us evaluate not only acquiring this course, but then basically a contract compliance officer. So we have a very complicated contract with Kemper. We, contact them every day. If somebody from the community complains, you can be assured that Mayor McCartney is on the phone with Mr. Barker and saying, get this fixed. As we all know, those of you who live in this area, there's sometimes problems with people urinating by Barron's Court. The mayor and the chief of police take that seriously. And we will continue to take that seriously on every level because it affects the quality of life for people who live there. Well, okay, you'll get to that and you'll help us. Okay, it's a fair comment. So, but we are attuned. Everything gets serious consideration and it can be addressed and should be addressed. But again, we can address it easily, put all homes and you won't have that. But we want to preserve the course like you do. So one of the first things we did is we looked for an expert. And while I kid this guy all the time, he looks too young. David Cronenheim is involved in the national and local golf associations around this country. He knows golf courses. He owns a golf course in Watchung, and he has been an invaluable asset. He makes between 2 and 4 surprise inspections on this course every month, and he's paid for by the vendor. Okay, so we know if there's an issue, if you complain and it doesn't get resolved immediately, we call Cronenheim and say, help us solve it. We have the same thing at the recycling center. Again, not a perfect facility, but we have a former member of the BPU, Mr. DeFeo. And those of you who have lived in this town a long time, it's a lot better than it was. Never going to be perfect, just like no government facility is going to be perfect. But the the contract compliance officers help us do it. Because again, the police can't do it every day. Mr. Gross has certain limited number of employees. So when you have an expert like Dave Cronheim who knows what's going on and can communicate, it helps us. So I want to turn it over to Dave Cronheim to give his overview as to what he's seen at the course and what he sees as the challenges as we move forward.
Thanks, Rich. I'll try to be brief. I think a lot of what I would say has already been covered by Chris in his wonderful presentation about the capital needs of the golf course, and also, again, our hats are off to Kemper. This was we said that when they. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm not in the line of sight there. Okay, good job. Okay, many people remember when they got here in the spring of 2019. Nothing had been done here. The grass hadn't been cut. It was 2 feet high in the rough, and we sort of handed them a fire hose and said, "Drink." So Kemper's done a wonderful job for us, and the facility that we're all lucky to have here and enjoy today is really due to their hard work, to Chris's hard work, and to their whole team standing behind the township. And I really do think it's been a true partnership between Kemper Sports and the township. Both sides have helped each other. The facility has gotten to where it is today, in large part because of that partnership. And I think going forward, we look forward to that partnership being something that will result in something that's greater than the sum of its parts. As we look at, Rich has done a great job outlining some of the capital needs and some of the directions that we might be able to take the facility in. I think we're all very excited about the opportunity to try to meet as many of those priorities as possible. Obviously, one of the great things about this site is there are no other public Seth Rayner golf courses that are of this caliber. There are a few sort of minor. It would be sort of like having a Frederick Law Olmsted Park in your yard. It's a wonderful thing to have. We're obviously very concerned with trying to meet all of the priorities while also preserving this wonderful asset that the town has. As Rich mentioned, I know that there are a lot of people within the state who come to West Orange, and their first exposure to West Orange is here through Rock Springs. So it's a wonderful marketing piece for the town, as well as being a tremendous asset. When we got involved, we thought that 20,000 rounds would be a great year, and Chris and his team to do 33,000 rounds. To put that in context, that's just an absolutely incredible number. Through the month of July, they did about 6,000 rounds, which sending 4 people off every 10 minutes is only 24 people an hour. You have to think that's full almost day through from 6:30 in the morning down through 4 o'clock at night. So it's really been tremendous, the response the community, both this community and the sort of larger golf community have had to this property. So Rich, I'll hand it back to you.
So here's the way we're going to do. I'm going to give it back to the mayor in a minute for her to wrap up, but then we want this is about your input. So we want to do this in an orderly manner, recognizing a lot of people will stay as long as we have to, but basically what's that? No, I didn't want you. Well, we'll say right where it is. So again, let's line up, and then after the mayor turns it back, you can all go single file. Let's respect that we got a lot of people and everybody wants to say and ask questions. We have people, you can direct the questions or you can just make a general comment, but that's what we want to do. Let's line up so everybody gets a shot, and let's do one round. Last point, and I'm going to turn back to Mayor McCartney. When we did this, we invested in West Orange. That's a bold move. Nobody else has bought a golf course. Think about Greenbrook in North Caldwell. They lost it to a developer. Just keep in mind, we went out with your money. We're all partners in this for $12.5 million. Now it's $13.5 million. We've got $5 million in capital expense coming down. So we did I believe, and I think the community overwhelmingly, as the mayor said, we invest in West Orange. But it's like Pottery Barn. You bought it, you own it, you got to keep it. And keeping it is challenging. So that's why there's no developer out there. Every one of them calls us all the time. And if you have developers or people you think people have said, a hotel, a spa, reflexology, whatever you want, people, everybody in this community knows people. We will talk to anybody, anytime about anything, as long as it meets the priorities, which is preserve as much as possible, deal with the tax burden of this, deal with the capital structure that is going to keep wanting to be fed all the time. So again, we welcome the input. We'll follow up. We're always available. I want to turn back to Mayor McCartney. The council is working incredibly hard, recognizing what you all know. Our tax level in this community is very high. People every year, you poll people in this community, number one issue is high taxes. People say be responsible with your tax dollars. We took a bold move buying this. The community agreed, but we now have to pay, as Mr. Gross said, $1.3 million to $1.5 million a year, plus the capital improvements that are going to have to be made. So, Mayor, good luck.
So thank you. I will pass the microphone if you have specific questions to one of our speakers. No? Yes. Okay, there you go.
Joe, you want me to move this?
It's okay. They want to get names and addresses for each speaker.
And again, I did say I left sign-up sheets on some of the chairs. Please pass it around so that we can keep in contact with you. Yes, Susan, good evening.
You're recognizing people are trying to
Yep.
hear, so get people out. So your name, please.
My
and
name
address.
is Susan Hammer, and I've lived here 42 years in town. My husband grew up here. There's a number of 97 Lessing Road and 509 Eagle Rock Avenue. We have two homes here. There's a number of things that weren't mentioned. One is the opening to Northfield that you had mentioned earlier when Parisi had brought it up. I thought that was kind of like the definite entryway. It never occurred to me to come off of when you're coming from Gregory up north, Walker Road. There's that entryway from where the homes are, just on one side of the street, which I don't know exactly where you're looking for development. But I would think that there was a big issue about this particular streets and this particular neighborhood to keep the traffic away from that. That was number one. So I thought hands down, that was the way it was going. Another thing is that was not addressed is just like you said, hockey is a big thing. Hockey's a big thing now. Swimming in this town has always been and always will be, soccer probably too, a huge moneymaker. And this is something that the town was going to make another pool so the kids could swim and rent it out to many people years ago. And it was taken off the ballot when McKeon was here. But in the meantime, I think who further away? Oh. And in the meantime, I think that in the back of everybody's head that's working on this change in development, that they should consider whoever is going to be developing, if it goes that way, they're going to want a clubhouse like any other 55 and older or older adults, whatever you want. As a real estate agent, I've been saying to Parisi and now to Susan, we lack, if we have any more rentals come here or senior housing, I'm not really behind it. I think with the library taking over an additional senior housing, that's plenty. We don't have an opportunity anywhere around here that's developed for 55 and olders like they have in South Jersey, Florida, wherever you go, where somebody that has in the surrounding towns, they're leaving their multi-million-dollar homes and they don't want to go to Florida. They don't want to go to Arizona. They want to stay local. There's nothing in that middle price range for them to house down to. So that's with this as a little clubhouse for them, I thought would be my kick in for years ago mentioning. The other thing is there was no mention of, now there was before, trying to get a restaurant up and going here with this gorgeous view. Restaurant consultant. I've never heard any of you mention that you've had a restaurant professional come in and give the pros and cons about that.
Thank you.
Why don't we got about 25 people or more waiting, so it's getting honest, we'll keep that.
Hello, so Nat Farfan, I'm on Undercliff Terrace South. Farfan, F as in Frank, AR, F as in Frank, A, and as in Nancy, and I'm on Undercliff Terrace South on that dead end. So diagonal from hole 4 and 5, I think it's to the right. So I think for me, the biggest thing is that obviously that development's going to have to happen eventually. I would like for it to be, 50% or less, just because I do think that the greenery is what got us to West Orange. We came from Maplewood, where there was plenty of parks and facilities for kids. I see very little in that area, which is fine. But I think that with that, we're losing greenery. So right across from us, we used to have beautiful greenery that would block the golf course. And what is that clearing section? And now is like, it's been cleared, but is there any conversation of bringing back trees and greens for the residents that pay so much taxes? We don't want to see the golfers, We've been having more balls attack us since then, but I think that would be nice to have. Also, like, I know that this might be controversial. Like I know deer ticks is an issue, but also, and there's been deer maintenance, but I don't want them all killed off because of that. Like nature and keeping this as green as possible, I think is important for the climate, the progressive younger people moving to Maplewood and West Orange, you know, so let's keep nature in mind is what I ask. A lot of greens would be nice. And then also when we think about development, let's not look at our block as parking for them. Because I like our privacy, I like our quietness. It's why we moved to a dead end. So I don't like the Northfield vibe and the Undercliff Terrace South. So I know it's very like granular in one way, but I feel like I just moved there 2.5 years ago and I already see a lot of nature being disrupted. So that's all I like to be considered. Thank you.
Thank you. And we're going to try to preserve as much as we can. Thank you.
Yeah, Javier Farfan, Undercliff Terrace. Yeah. Hey, my question is just timing. Just want to understand what the timing is going to look like in regards to all this analysis, when the decision is going to be made, and how we're going to get to that point. So just have an understanding of that.
We'll address it. Okay.
Hi, Andrew Block, BLOCK, Barringer Court. So we're on the corner of the 12th tee box, the 15th fairway, the 16th tee box, and the 11th green. So it's like main and main. We've addressed this with Kemper. Chris has been, I'm sure he doesn't want to see my face. I'm sure. The 12th tee box is the bathroom for the golf course. My wife's office, because right on the corner, my wife works out of her office every day, has somebody pulling their pants down in front of her every single day. And she would have been here, but it's not feeling well. So I'm speaking for her. On top of that, we have members of our community, Barringer Court, that have had to replace skylights from golf balls at our expense because we've been told that legally we bought when it was a golf course. This is true. We have some liability. We bought when it was a private golf course, not a golf course when there were 33,000 rounds played every year. It's insane. And on a Sunday or a Saturday, when I'm sitting in my backyard with my grandchildren, I have people walking between the bushes that they put in nicely that will take another 20 years to mature. There's a sign which people use to aim at. Seriously, they'll tell you because they put in cameras. We'll deal with it already.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Good. Deal with it.
Calvin Johnson, 22 Rock Spring. Oh, sure. We were at this meeting last year when we were with the previous administration, and we went through the whole spiel of, the golf course being purchased was great. And, I think people have a misunderstanding here. They don't understand that this has to be developed. And I think that should be, the administration should make that clear to people, because we've had this conversation plenty of times and people think this can stay 18-hole golf course, green acres and all this other stuff. But people have to get really clear that this is going to be developed because there's obviously some major things that have to go on. So I just think you just need to tell people that this is not an option. This is for real and it has to happen. So, and my biggest thing is having Rock Spring closed.
Please, let's be respectful to our speakers.
You have
Thank you.
to be realistic.
Okay, thank you, sir. That's okay. Finish.
So, and the biggest thing is having Rock Spring Road closed because it is very dangerous. There was an accident, obviously, from a party that some administration threw. That's very dangerous on Northfield Avenue. So that's my issue.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Good evening.
Hi, I'm Phaedra Singelis. I'm Phaedra Singelis, 6 Singelis, 6 Essex Terrace. I'm just literally downhill, like right on the other side of the hill. So, sorry. So I just like to second the young lady's comment about the environment and keeping things green and adding more trees and stuff is really, really important, especially for younger generations moving in. I'd also like to have a full environmental assessment done before any development's done, because as someone who lives downhill and downslope and down into where water runoff happens, that it's crucial that we take very consideration of the people who live downstream from all this. I also looking at the $5.4 million for capital improvements for the golf course. I'd like the county to consider doing green infrastructure updates, right? Geothermal, solar, using gray water to help irrigate the golf course, that kind of thing. There is a way that we could certify the golf course as a green golf course. So I think we should take those considerations seriously. It would make us a very progressive town in that aspect, and it would offset some of the other development needs that I understand need to be done.
Thank you. Very much appreciate it.
Your name, sir? Your name, sir?
Anthony Nicotera. I'm sure Nicotera.
And your address?
8 Undercliff Terrace South, also on the dead end just below the club. So I want to thank everyone, and I thank you for hosting this. I appreciate very much the opportunity to share a few thoughts, and also the turnout obviously is encouraging to me. I spent about 7 years working at Rutgers University with their School of Engineering. I have a law social work background, and also with their environmental sciences school. They have a cooperative extension, which I know you know about. And I think I'm trying to think creatively here about maximizing revenue, which obviously is important, but also maintaining green space, which would be a priority for us, certainly, and, not developing residentially in, around the club, but still trying to find ways to create revenue. So can we consult with them in a very cost-effective way? They provide those services. I worked with the engineers who provide those services at little to no cost to communities. That's what they do as a land-grant university. So I'm hoping that might be something we could do at a minimal cost that could get us to potentially a creative third way, so to speak, as opposed to fighting one another, those who don't want residential development versus those who want environmental development. I personally want environmental park space, some kind of spaces for our kids who are 2.5. We've been here since 2009. We love the dead end. We love the quiet. We also would love to have more park space. And I do think there are ways you could create revenue generating kind of park space, whether it's pools or again, maybe some kind of restaurant could be nice if there, was an event space, but I'm even a little wary of that, actually. Certainly don't want parking or residence. Just my thought. Thank you.
Appreciate that. I think you just cut them off.
My name is James McFarlane from 3 West Road. Is this loud enough? Yeah, okay, thanks. So I live very close to the course here. Only been in the town about 4 years, moved in just before the pandemic, and really appreciate the property. I walked it, I played it, jogged around it. I've been on every street. I'm very familiar with these areas that you're talking about. And I've never seen it sort of analyzed like this with the different pockets. I think that's really interesting. Thought about the numbers a lot as well. And yeah, I understand it's a challenging property. So I think this kind of meeting is overdue, but good. And I'm glad we have experts here. One area I didn't see a lot of here was about the restaurant. I would love to hear more about what's going on with the restaurant. I know there've been a couple of iterations. I've been in communication with the guy that runs it as well, and understanding the challenges they've had. I've seen some successes, it looks like here, where they've had events and made money off that. And, the marketing I've heard is poor. So a lot of people don't know where it is, or they put event flyers out and people are like, it doesn't even say where that is. So I think there's a lot of potential in that. I know it's kind of subcontracted or something through Kemper. So maybe Chris can respond to that. Yeah, also my concern is probably that we have to make money on it, or we have to milk it for everything. I mean, it is a beautiful asset. Once we take all those trees away or give the pockets away, we'll never get them back. And personally, I don't there's nothing I can walk to here, like even shops or a playground or anything. I have a 5-year-old and a 1-year-old. So I would love some more parks. And yes, obviously they cost money, but if we're investing in West Orange, that's also being prepared to pay for things that don't make money to give back to the community. So I'd love to see those sort of options as well. I'm kind of familiar with those from the city where I moved, where, you know, we have a bit of development, but they also provide some kind of share or public space. So I think the proposals I've heard before were sort of very gated and you couldn't even walk through them, or they weren't anything that people who didn't live there could come to. So thank you.
Thank you, James.
Anyone? Yeah.
Hi, Ann Bertelson, Spring Hill Drive. Bertelson, Bertelsen. Spring Hill Drive. Thank you. Just a couple of questions. So one is, has there been or a master plan in terms of what this space should be, this entity itself, so that there's not a lot of one-offs of maybe we should do a restaurant? No offense to anyone who's brought up any of these ideas, but thinking about it more holistically, what do we want Rock Spring to be? What are the pieces that would be part of the operating model, the business model, that would ensure long-term durability and not have these panic situations of needing, and granted, knowing this is all new, but thinking about it more strategically, what do we want this space to be? How do we make the revenue? What are the infrastructure investments that we want to make? So wanted to understand if there was that. On a tactical level, will this presentation and the maps be made available so people can study them? And then the third piece was, while you're talking about roughly 9 acres, they're not 9 contiguous acres. So what are the zoning requirements in terms of these 2-acre-ish plots? What's the maximum development that you can put? And does that really get us the numbers that you need? Okay.
Thank you.
Richard Hopping, Hopping, 407 Walker Road, also known as Lepore Speedway. I just want to get that out there because I've been here for 40 years, coming on 40 years. I've lived past beyond the golf course on Walker Road. We fought against the sidewalks for 3 houses that we'd be responsible for, when all the other houses on the other side are the ones that walk down Walker Road. You know, I can walk across the street and get to the sidewalk. All the developments harping back. When I first moved to Walker Road, it was a nice little road. It wasn't that fast. It wasn't in need of speed bumps or police officers or any of that. Now it is a free-for-all. So any more traffic on Walker Road can't happen. I mean, I've almost been hit. My husband's almost been hit. It's disgraceful. And we were told by Mr. Lepore that we would be getting speed lumps now, not even bumps, lumps. I don't know what that's going to do, but I don't think it's going to do the job. And it's really awful to see somebody go, let's say 60, 70, maybe 75 miles an hour. We've had several accidents there. And the last thing I want to say, and this is, it's just a random, you've been doing some drainage on the far side, right by Walker Road, and it's aimed directly at my house. The last time we had a heavy, substantial rainstorm, that drainage went over the embankment, and for the first time in my 40 years, flooded my whole first floor. And I was told, well, you can't do anything about that with insurance because it's groundwater. But it's the groundwater from this golf course that you aimed at my house. Thank you.
I'm Tom Edwards, 26 Rock Spring Road, just down the way. And first of all, I would like to thank you. I think we would all like to thank you for holding this event. This is not, I guess, easy to do. It takes a lot of everything. Okay, sorry. I had 2 things. The first thing is kind of an endorsement. Several people have talked about making this an event center. And the presentation started off with saying that this structure, this event center, is really not compatible with totally compatible with the golf course. It is something completely different and unique. My daughter was married and held her reception here with the view and everything else, and had nothing to do with golf. The second thing is, with respect to the concept of what we're doing, the purchase of the property was a big step and a one-time thing. But we've taken that step, and all of this is part of West Orange. All the presentation tonight has focused on just this. There was in December in Golf Magazine a write-up about this course. We have other golf course in town, not mentioned. This is like, this place is like a shiny object. You can see it from everywhere. To break it apart in any way changes what it is. I think back to the event center, the golf group shouldn't be trying to maintain this building, setting up events. Splitting off little pieces of this, moving to the second part, and selling them off seems like a narrow vision. The other golf course not mentioned, are there little patches of land around that? Oh, we
Those
don't.
are privately owned.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, let's say other little patches of land around town. Let's make it even broader, not a golf course. Why don't we look in other places and not here at the shiny object? That's it. Thank you.
Hi, Mark Fishkin, 26 Undercliff Terrace South, Fishkin, 26. Yeah, that's the first house down the street, the one that's probably about 20 yards from the entrance to the quarry. And we have endured over the last 18 months a near constant torrent of heavy construction trucks and equipment and beeping and backing up. My mic's been cut. So
I don't think
I'll
so.
just talk. Okay. You want to try that? Here we go. Thanks. And as someone that now works at home, there are days that it's frankly unbearable. Even now, even though the work there, I'm really glad that Grabowski cleared it at no charge to the town. But as the Farfans mentioned earlier, it's a lot less green now because of the clearing that's been done. The notion of turning this small parcel into housing and the thought of spending another number of years enduring construction of some sort of housing yards away from my home is it's frankly, it's just dreadful. So as a 20-year West Orange resident, about to be an empty nester soon, the notion of staying, or frankly, even the notion of selling outside of a construction zone is not enticing. So that's my comment. Thank you.
Liana DeCicco. Yeah, it's Liana, then DECICCO, and that's 14 Undercliff Terrace South. So I just want to start this off by saying, like, I'm not pro golf or anti golf. I don't care about golf, but the thing is, there's kind of like two conflicting narratives here that I'm having a little bit of a hard time following. One is that the golf course is so great, we have to keep it 18 holes, we can't touch it. And the other is that the golf course is costing us so much money, it's so expensive, and we have to fix everything. The other thing is, if you're going to develop something, development also comes with a cost. It's going to drain the town of some resources, right? There's no such thing as, okay, we're going to develop, we're going to get that money, we're going to pay down the bond, but what's the long-term implication of the development on the town and the town's resources? It's obviously going to cost money. How's that going to impact us? I think one of the things, and also seeing those parcels of land that were kind of like carved out for development, those were all on top of people's homes. Like you have an entire golf course, right? Like there's this whole, all of these acreage, right? And all of those parcels were on top of people's homes. We live here. Like this is our quality of life. Like my house is what I've worked for my entire life. That's my savings. That's my daughter's future. Like to think that I'm going to be compromised or that's going to be compromised is literally terrifying. Where can we go? Honestly, nowhere with 7% interest rates. Like I'm not looking to sell my house and where am I going to go? So the impact of that on the people that have invested in the neighborhood, you talk about investing in West Orange. What have we invested? What could we lose here? I mean, that's sad. And I was so for the golf course. I was advocating for it. You know, I wrote the emails. I was there because I was terrified of development. I wanted it to be green. I moved from the city. I grew up there. It was horrible to start my family here. That's like, it means more to me that I was able to provide that for my daughter, for my wife, than anything else. And to think that, wow, like my quality of life, like everything that I've saved for and worked for could be not what I anticipated, or I could potentially lose money. That's a really hard pill to swallow. You have the land, right? We have the land. If you're saying that something has to be developed, there's no other option, which I frankly don't think that's true. Like if the golf course is costing money, development will eventually cost money. Like those are going to be people within the town that need resources. We talk about garbage, schools, everything else. It's not like, oh, develop it and nothing else is going to happen. Everything's going to be perfect. That's going to fix everything that we have to do, right? There's traffic, quality of life, noise, just overall general population, the school system. I'm trying to get my daughter into like the preschool that's starting up and there's already a waiting list. So what are we going to do for other people? And if you think about if they're apartments, that's where people are going now. Everybody kind of says, one of the things that happened when Mayor Parisi put up apartments is everybody was saying, well, it's not going to be a strain on the schools because apartments, they're not really going to be for families. Interest rates are 7%. They're going to the apartments. Like, you know, it's not what it used to be. And the housing, we don't have that many houses for, anyway, I'm going on. Anyway, the point is, if we're going to keep it green, if we're going to have this amazing golf course, leave it a golf course. Just leave it as is. If you're going to develop it in a place that is going to have a minimal impact on the people, not the golf players. The people that live here and not the golf players. Everything is about the golf course, the golf course, the golf course. What about the people? They come, they play, they eat, they drink, they leave. I live here, I stay here.
John Butler, 21 Rayner Road, which is right around the corner here. My wife has been here since she was 4 years old, and I won't go into how old that is, but we've been here for quite a while. We walk around the golf course. You probably see my wife every day out here. And, you know, I'm glad to see that you're looking at something more than a big monolithic development, because I don't think that suits anybody's interest. If you're looking at smaller, maybe it makes sense to look at something along Northfield again. You know, move hole 17, which runs right along there. You know, do something with those other pieces. You know, look at something like that. I think if you're going to have development, that probably makes the most sense, is the least impact on the neighborhoods around here, least impact on traffic, everything else. Second point, I'll just bring it up because my daughter is the coach for the town swim league. Opening the pool in the summer for the swim team or lap lanes as a codicil to membership in the town pool is something to consider.
Thank you. I just want to say one thing, just to clarify. When we saw that map with the different parcels that were sectioned there, we were not, and I'm sorry that this came across, we were not talking about developing every one of those parcels. That was just to show that that could be potential development. Not all of them. No, I never meant that to be. So that's not what we were talking about.
Hi, Todd DeBovey, 10 Burnett Terrace. DUBOVY. 10 Burnett. Yep. Looking at this from a more of a financial standpoint, obviously we have a big obligation of maintaining and paying for capital improvements. That's the way it's been approached with a short-term lease with Camper. Has any thought been given to a more long-term relationship with Kemper? Long-term net lease that gives them responsibility for the entire property, including this building, and with the obligation to pay a rent that's predicated on what they have here, with us getting a net rent and no obligation on capital improvements. It's a typical triple net lease arrangement. You had said before that they now have all the risk. Well, they don't. We've got $1.5 million in risk that we are paying for every year, and then some, and plus we're facing $5 million more. Another approach from a structural standpoint needs to be looked at. I also agree with developing a couple of parcels, but I'd like to know what information and data you guys have yet. Maybe you haven't gotten it yet, but what could you get for each parcel? Because that's all I got.
So we only have about 5 more minutes, so we want to respect your time. We'll stay all night, but we don't want to keep everyone. So let's finish the last 2 or 3 people, and then anybody else has questions can come up and ask.
Hi, I'm Jonathan Redwine. I live on Cobain Terrace down the hill here. 10 Cobain Terrace. I appreciate everybody coming and giving presentations. I assume you didn't have a ton of time and a lot of detail around what our community wants to hear about this project. I hear a lot of talk about problems and costs and issues and things that we have to confront and face. What I'm not really hearing are substantive, specific plans to own and operate the place that have numbers attached to them and specific plans on what to do. It's the kind of thing that I think that our town would really benefit from having a town planner. And I think that that person could have their mission be understand how best to own and operate this place. I understand that people who are working for our town now aren't experts in that. I think we need an expert in that. And I think we need specifics around it. I don't hear that now. What I hear now is fear. And I feel like this narrative is just driving toward development. And I think a lot of people in town don't want to see that. But it feels to me that that's where it's driving toward.
Good evening. My name is Jim Hall. I'm from 14 Hillcrest Avenue, behind 4 and 5. Couple of things I just wanted to point out, and I apologize. I yelled this out earlier, and I apologize that. But I think a lot of us were shocked to get this notice because the mayor ran on a policy. I think it was her number 1 bullet point of not developing Rock Spring, and we then, by the way, the first notice that we all got of this meeting had the word developing. It's disappeared. But let's move on. But let's just be honest with ourselves, right? You're telling me that wasn't the first one? Okay, sure. So look, I think a lot of the stuff here has been said with an agenda. I mean, every golf course superintendent is going to tell you that they need more money to fix the course. I don't know how many golfers are out there, but believe me, that's common. But I am trying to be positive. And I will tell you that I was actually pleasantly surprised that the proposal seems to be to do what I think is obvious, which is to develop this land right here. This is the most valuable piece of land we have. Everyone can look out that window and see that. If you put houses here or a 5-story building with a clubhouse on the bottom floor and like a catering space on the top floor. I mean, just imagine that. How many people have been to High Lawn Pavilion? Right? This would crush High Lawn Pavilion. And I don't know why nobody's been able to do this before, but that to me is the obvious answer. I mean, it might need driving a road down or driving West Road down. I don't know, to handle the extra traffic. But well, I know nobody on restaurant wants it, but would you rather? Okay, sorry, no dialogue. Would you rather I wanted behind? But anyway, that to me is the right answer. And I understand the town needs revenue from this space, and that's the right answer. Trying to like subdivide little pieces is just going to cause people pain. And, you know, everybody we've heard up here has their own little piece of pain. I have mine too. But this one is already here. It's already here. Let's figure out a way to develop this land on the footprint of this building. It can still have a clubhouse for golf. It can have condos for people who want to look out at the sky. And it can maybe have, like I said, a restaurant or a catering space. And again, by the way, I noticed that we don't know how much our restaurant revenue is. That wasn't included. But anyway, I'm sorry.
Okay, Mark Rosenberg, Fernwood Circle. So just, well, I'll be real quick. You can have my time. So real quick, a lot of years we've been seeing this since the beginning. I think the overall theme that we're all hearing is we need a master plan. We've been asking for a master plan since the beginning. Every time we meet, Parisi did his spiel. We're doing it currently with the current administration. It's sort of thrown together, but there's no major thought to what is planned here. And we're worried about water. We all live on the hill. We know we have water issues up here. Taking down all the trees is not going to help your water issue. It's going to make it worse. We're seeing all the issues that we're seeing across town. We're seeing it on every major hilltop. It's not going to make it any better.
Oh, I don't understand. Okay. So my name is Mick Erickson. I'm at 16 Maple Ave. Erickson. 16 Maple. Maybe next time we could get a mailer or something, because the only reason I know is Marielle from Rock Spring. Email, thank you for sending it out, because I didn't even know about this. I live like 7 houses away. That's it from this. And you know, about the cliff construction, we've already had construction issues on Northfield. Don't forget that, with Seton Hall Prep athletic falling down on the cliff there. So we don't want to do the same thing here. I mean, from what we've heard here, the building's too old. It costs too much to develop, but even if we do develop, it only pays down half of the debt. We got a gem that's 3,300 golf rounds, 33,000 golf rounds, and we can't make profit on it. Amazing. You know, just amazing. No, yeah, I do. What good is a golf course for? This is a question for people that don't play golf. Can we ride our bikes on the golf cart trails? I'd like to. You know, it's deadly in town here. Go on Washington Road. I ride a bike everywhere around here, and we haven't even talked about bike trails here. Why not? You know, I'll make it faster for you. Why not a permaculture food forest with bike trails instead of a golf course and green acres?
Thank you very much.
Harvey Grossman, 4 Reed Street. I've heard a lot, there has been a lot of talk about the maintenance and the operation of the golf course, but I would also think that you should address the concept of the non-taxpayer income stream that could be generated from this clubhouse. I have friends that were members of this club for many, many years, and they always told me about weddings and bar mitzvahs and so forth that were conducted here. I would like to hear some discussion about the development of an income stream based on the use of this particular land, because we don't, we've changed. We don't have Mayfair Farms. We don't have other facilities. And this would be a perfect place. I know restaurateurs that have expressed to me interest in this facility. It could be a real moneymaker for us. That's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you, Harvey. Thank you. Thank you all. So I'm sorry we didn't talk about the restaurant, because yes, we do intend to have a viable restaurant that will be part of this program. And this will definitely be an event space. So that was not really what, I guess that didn't come across during our presentation. We were trying to get ideas from people. We do have events already planned, tournaments, things will work here. The intent of this presentation was to show you that if we didn't do anything, I did want that to be part of the presentation, that if we did not develop anything, and we did apply for Green Acres funding, and if we did get 50% of that, there would be a tax implication of what that would be if we didn't have a development, but there would also be the tax implication compounded by all of the capital improvements that we just saw. So that is something that needs to be considered. I said we would maintain the integrity of the course, but we also have to maintain the integrity of the neighborhood and all of our taxpayers. So that is something that we are considered. And I also wanted to mention again about those little parcels. It wasn't a matter of developing all over. It was a matter to hear from everyone to see which would be the most non-invasive. And the traffic expert is here to also help us plot that through. There's definitely something about the restaurant. What else? I appreciate the man. I'm sorry. Let me see what the name was. Anthony Nicotera. Amy Rowe, Dr. Amy Rowe was here just today because we have a culvert down in the valley that she was coming out of the Rutgers Cooperative. She has been helpful on many occasions. So I do appreciate those comments because I work closely with the Rutgers Cooperative. Yes.
So I wanted to ask the final wrap up, Chief Abbott. For those of you who don't know Chief Abbott, he's one of the most responsive public servants that I've ever met in 25 years doing this. There is not a time, there's no one in this room he won't give his cell phone to. And sorry, but the chief is now the director of operations. So when people talk about issues like the quality of life, like working at home and whatnot, I've seen the chief on Sunday mornings trying to respond. Doesn't mean we have a perfect answer for those, but I did want to turn it over to him so that he could explain. And we've been so fortunate to have a very professional police force that's always in touch with Rock Springs. So I'm going to give it to Chief.
Good evening, and thank you for coming out. I know everybody's busy, and I know how important this is to all of you. I was through the first issue with this when Mayor Parisi presented, and again, I'm here tonight. So Rich asked me to talk about the traffic concerns and issues within the Rock Spring Rainer West Road. We haven't had a tremendous increase of experience in any real problems. It's been a work in progress, and to the credit of the people who live on those three streets, you've really been, there to bounce things off us, to work back and forth. Lenny Laporte's put a lot of effort in. We've increased signs and different things, and fortunately, I think it's worked. May not be, as Rich said, may not be perfect, but I think considering the amount of golfers that come in and out of here, it's been pretty good because we really haven't had a big problem with accidents or issues like that. Somebody touched on Walker Road. It is an issue. I understand that. That too is still being still being worked on with the speed tables and so on. But that really isn't attributable to the golf course. They're not people coming or going from the golf course for the most part. That would be kind of an unusual circuitous route to take if you were coming to or from the golf course. But it's not an issue that we're blind to. We're working on it, and hopefully we'll make some improvements there as we did in the neighborhood, the immediate neighborhood. Anything else? Yeah, yes, the quality of life issues with people urinating, that's been an ongoing thing. We've put cameras up, signs up, and it still occurs. Chris has been great with it. Those that do get caught, they get banned from the golf course. They're done. They can't come back. So, I mean, we're doing our best with that. Talk about maybe, some more plantings, some more screening. Again, if we catch them, if we catch them, they're gone. They're done. So. So that would all be studied. That would be part of a traffic study. So the question was, what about the increased traffic on Northfield, which I think we can all agree is more a result of the county properties, the zoo and so on, than it is from the golf course. But notwithstanding, there is an increase in traffic. So the point I was trying to drive home was that nothing is, there's no plan here. This is to hear from the residents and see what their issues are. And there would be a traffic study by traffic experts like this gentleman to determine what that impact would be. So that is a direct answer to your question.
So again, this is the first. You see, a couple of people ask about master plans and whatnot. This is the beginning. This is why we're here tonight. It's not the end. A lot of people think there's done deals and whatnot. It's about weighing the different consideration and priorities, recognizing that we have an asset, but that this asset doesn't just maintain itself. There was a comment made about how beautiful this bluff is, and they're right. And again, if you have people, keep in mind, the markets control this. A woman made a point about raising interest rates. Somebody else made the point of, well, why don't we put condos here and have a restaurant on the top? The bottom line is high end. This is not like High Lawn Pavilion. There is no residential at High Lawn Pavilion. So every person who's contacted us about interest will not put the clubhouse and an event space on the first floor, because they say people paying $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 or buying units here will not want to be above when people are done playing golf, eating in this place, or if you have a wedding or an event. So again, those are all consideration. Doesn't mean there's anything done. And if you all have contacts, no developers, no people, we will talk to anybody. We will talk to you individually, collectively, and whatnot. There's no done deal. Again, at the end of the day, this process someone asked about timing. The timing is we need to address the financial implications, short-term, medium-term, and long-term. So that doesn't mean we're going to be done with this in 3 months or 6 months or 9 months, but it means that every time we kick the football or whatever you want to call it down the way, again, as your taxes go up, which they do, and we all are respectful of that, we need to do whatever is fiscally responsible and is least impactful on this community and the entire community, financially and whatnot. So again, your turnout here speaks volumes. Your commitment to West Orange speaks even more volume. Your investment in this town and your particular homes means everything to all of us. And again, it's a new mayor. And that's why Mayor McCartney said one of the first things we need to do is come pick this up and put it back out there. And again, this isn't the one and done. So we appreciate it. We appreciate your time. It's almost 9 o'clock now. Everybody get home. Be careful pulling out of the street. So everybody's quality of life. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you so much. This was great. What's the next step? So when?